Why should I supplement with vitamin D when I could just go out in the sun and make vitamin D? This is not an uncommon question that I get, and the answer may surprise you. But the short answer is, as a colleague of mine likes to say, unless you're going to be outside in the sun all the time, completely naked, and live in sub-Saharan Africa, you're not going to get enough vitamin D from the sun. So unless you want to go live that lifestyle, you need to supplement with vitamin D. I'm Dr. John Bartemus, and I'm putting the pieces together to help you live a life at optimal. So the short answer is you have to go live as a hunter-gatherer if you want to get enough sun to make enough vitamin D without supplementation. The long answer is that there's multiple variables that make your likelihood of getting enough vitamin D from the sun unlikely. One of those variables is multiple studies over the years have shown that the higher you go in latitude away from the equator, the worse the angle of incidence of the sun, and so the less vitamin D you get from sunlight the more northern you live. And there's associations with the farther you are from the equator, the more multiple sclerosis, the more type 1 diabetes, the more Crohn's disease, the more autoimmunity we see that is associated with low vitamin D levels. Other factors are genetic factors or single nucleotide polymorphisms or SNPs or gene mutations that each of us have different combinations of and make us unique. So you may have mutations in the genes that code for vitamin D binding proteins that carry D around in the system. So if you have high affinity binding proteins, you'll do one thing with vitamin D. If you have low affinity or low binding of those proteins, then you'll do another thing. So high binding affinity promotes good kidney conversion and good bone health, but low binding affinity promotes better immune response against pathogens. So there's variations in your ability to transport vitamin D and the impact on your body. Also, there's genes related to protein coding for enzymes that convert 25 hydroxyvitamin D to 125 or the active form. So if you're not good at that conversion, again, you're not going to be good at getting active vitamin D from the sun. So when we look at it schematically, we could say we have the sun, and the sun gives us vitamin D or precursors. That vitamin D hits the skin, and then from the skin it goes to the liver, and then from the liver it goes to the kidney. And the end result of the kidney is 125 dihydroxy vitamin D3. And that is the active form in the body. And that's converted from the 25 hydroxy D3 that you see on your lab tests. You can test for both of these forms. The 25 hydroxy is more common and less expensive. The 125 is very uncommonly tested in the conventional medical model and is more expensive. So being able to test both of these and understand what your 25 and what your 125 tells us a whole bunch about kidney conversion and about the active form and the levels you have in your immune system, or in your total system, excuse me, and how that impacts bone health, how that impacts anti-inflammatory capacity. Levels of the 25 tell us about potential for vitamin D impacting immune function, so preventing autoimmunity, specifically MS, type 1 diabetes, and Crohn's, but then also fighting intracellular bacterial infections such as tuberculosis. So vitamin D must be optimal for you to have optimal bone physiology, optimal immune response to pathogens, optimal anti-inflammatory capacity, optimal dopamine signaling. And getting it from the sun exclusively is not going to happen for you unless you live completely naked, outdoors all the time in sub-Saharan Africa. So this is why you need to supplement with vitamin D. If you need or want to know specifically how much you need to supplement with, then we need to do testing to understand what are your 25-hydroxy and 125-dihydroxy levels. Do you have any genetic mutations or SNPs as it relates to vitamin D binding proteins, vitamin D receptors, and the enzymes that make this conversion right here. So the short answer is you do need to supplement with vitamin D even in summer months, because unless you're living in a nudist colony around the equator, you're not getting enough from the sun.